Welcome back. It's Breakfast Daily on Citi TV. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, I did tell you earlier that our personality is a woman who is now famous for the phrase, don't touch men, which literally means don't touch your mouth, your eyes, and your nose. As far as coronavirus is concerned, I'm talking about Dr. Ama Edwin. She's a physician, a clinical psychologist, and also a bioethicist. It's a mouthful.
Yes,
you tell
right.
us all about it. And if you have any questions for her, let us know with the hashtag Breakfast Daily and the WhatsApp line 0550-585-832. If you're outside Ghana, the country code is +233. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well by God's grace.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we even learn about your life, can you tell us a bit about the different hats you wear and what they all mean?
So the different hats I wear. I am a doctor. I went to medical school, finished in 1994. So that's like 26 years ago, University of Ghana Medical School. But before going into medicine, I had always been interested in mental health. Actually, when I was during my sixth form in Achimota school, so this was 86, 87, 85 to 87. I mean, there were several issues that I was dealing with, and a mate of mine, Kofi Lane, told me that I know this nice lady. I think you should talk to her, and then when you do, you'll be fine.
Wow.
So we went to her house, and it was Dr. Ama Dziffa Didi, and after, like, it was probably the first time was more than almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Afterwards, I was like, I want to be able to do this in life, to be able to help people who are confused, who are distressed, can't figure things out, and having all sorts of issues, to give them that space to listen. So when I was filling the forms for Legon, we are the 88-89 academic year. I remember choosing medicine as my first choice, and then psychology as the second. So I got to medicine and I did it, and I actually initially thought I was going to do psychiatry, because if you're a medical doctor and you are interested in mental health, that's what you do. But just when I was the beginning, so I was working at the psychiatric hospital then, but a few things happened and I realized that no, I want to do clinical psychology. At that time, I didn't know it was even possible for a doctor to do that. But just the year before, one doctor who is with the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa now, Dr. Margaret Agama, she was working at 37, had gone in. So she was the first doctor I met. So she paved the way, and the next year, 2 of us went in, the next year another, and then it's like several doctors. Yes, I think right now there are more, I think over 10 doctors who I know are also clinical psychologists. Not all of them are in Ghana. So that is it. So as for being interested in mental health, that has always been something that I love talking to people. Well, I love talking, but I also love listening to people. And even when I was in secondary school, every my girls are watching, so bold and beautiful 85-year-old. Shout out to you. Love you, bold and beautiful ladies. So even there, I realized that people would talk to me about their problems and issues like that. So over time, I realized that this is not just a job, it's a calling. But regarding the bioethics, when I was in medical school final year, I had to do a long essay, and my long essay was on mental health in Ghana. So this was 1994, and I did key interview of key people. I just interviewed 6 people, and one of them was now Reverend Professor Father Piapuku in Kumasi. He was then with the Department of Behavioral Sciences at Pomfanoche, and I interviewed him, and I got to know he was an ethicist, and I got fascinated. It's like, what is it? And we talked about it. I was like, this is what I want to do. So during my MPhil, one of the courses we did was, oh, this thing is coming down. Don't touch your nose, and I'm touching my nose. You are not even Max. We'll talk about that later. So one of the courses that we did was ethics and counseling issues in clinical and counseling psychology. And Professor Angelo Furiata taught us, and for me, I was like, this is it.
What did you like about it?
What did I like about it? It's about writing issue papers. So you're talking about something like dual relationship. If you're a psychologist, you can't date your client even when it's over, and you have to make a case for it, or a case against a doctor-patient relationship. So that really made me enjoy the ethics more, because father had told me about it, and then this one. And so at a point in my life, I was practicing as a doctor and psychologist in Kolebu, but I was doing a lot of training on ethics issues. So a very good friend of mine, Professor Kojo Kram, said, Ama, you are good at this, and so and I remember, it's like, one thing I don't want to do is to go out and even to go and train. I mean, I'm not that. I actually attend a paid PhD, University of California, Davis, because I didn't want to. So
why didn't you want to?
To leave and go there. Okay, so at that time, one of the reasons was that we didn't have a child. I wanted a child, and I'm like, if I leave for 3 years PhD, I mean, it's not a factor, but I love Ghana. Oh God, we're
gonna forgive Doc today. Okay?
You see, normally I wear surgical mask, so this one,
it's okay. We're gonna forgive you today.
So that was part of the reason. So when I realized that I had to do this, where to do it, and I remember going to Legon to the Department of Philosophy, because ethics is basically philosophy, applied philosophy. And I just didn't gel. For me, when something doesn't feel right with me intuitively, I am very hesitant to do it, because I see it as a check in my spirit. Yeah. So I came back and spoke to Dr. Dziffa Akua Ametam, who's been a mentor to me all my life. Like, really, I mean, I know that any issue, whatever, I can talk to any day, anytime. So I went to have a discussion with her, and she said, this was about 2005. She said, you know, there are lots of programs online. You'd be surprised you'd be able to do a program in bioethics online. So just Google it. So I Googled it and came across this program, Bioethics and Health Policy, that was being done by the Newsroom Institute of the Street School of Medicine, Loyola University, Chicago, but it was hosted by the Newsroom Institute of Bioethics. And it was mainly online. There was a summer session where you go to campus for just a weekend. I was like, that's great.
Perfect.
So I had to apply and everything. Long story short, they didn't have a doctorate level program at that time. So it was a master's in bioethics and health policy. But I said, I'll take it. And oh, I enjoyed it. I loved it. The best course for me and the most interesting was bioethics and the law.
What medical ethics,
medical ethics and the law, because in secondary school I wanted to do law. Medicine was never ever.
At this point, we're going to scale back to your life. Where did you grow up? Were you always this extroverted and bubbly? Tell us about your life.
Oh, I think anybody, my family, my parents are watching, my siblings are watching, anybody who knows me. If I talked about my friend, Professor Kojo Kram, who, like, he sees me quiet and says, like, what is happening to my bubbly friend? And I'm saying, oh, and to me, and yet less bubbly. Don't cast him, because I'm human. I get low moments, I get sad moments. I get times that I don't even want to talk to anyone, as unbelievable as some of you might believe, but that is it. I'm human. So I love the law. I love the law. I loved it so much. And in US, unlike Europe, bioethics in the US is undergirded by the law. If you do bioethics in the Europe, it's going to be more like philosophy, but US is a society where there's a lot of litigation, more practice. So you look at how bioethics started there. So law is a huge part of it.
So there's no gray area when it comes to the US bioethics?
No, there is. The law, what I'm saying is, the philosophy is that, because I did moral philosophy, and I liked my institution, Loyola University Chicago, because it's also a Jesuit institute. So for me, the moral aspect of ethics was important. So I did that, Catholic bioethics and all of that. So, but the law, you will know, you are taught to write a case brief like you are doing law. Yes.
Wow.
Because when you go in as an expert witness in terms of bioethics issues, they're not just going to ask questions related to that, human rights and law and things. So that also made me enjoy it so much. And until recently, I was teaching bioethics and health law at the School of Medicine, University of Health and Allied Sciences, and I enjoy it. I love it because it brings my pocket lawyer nature.
So we're now going to learn about you beyond your profession. So where did you grow up? How many siblings did you have? What did you do for fun? What was life like before secondary school? And so our viewers, if you have any questions for Doc, let us know the hashtag Breakfast Daily or the WhatsApp line 0550-585-832. The country code is +233 if you're outside Ghana. I'm going to ask her any question you throw at me. I won't let her get out of here without answering your question. So you have to. So tell us.
So
how was life like as a child?
Well, the first, I think my parents were in Ebri. So the early years of my childhood, there used to be a college called Methodist Training College, Metico. Okay. But I think, my dad is listening, so I have to be right the date, either between 72 and 74, that's folded up, and the last batch of students, I think it was 73 or 74, were transferred to Commander. Okay. But before then it was Metico, and that's where my dad taught. He was vice principal. So the first few years of my life, Ekwapimchi was my primary language because I grew up on Metico. Now it's part of Ebri Girls, and I went to Ebri Girls and I stayed on that campus too. So my dad, being a teacher, eventually became a headmaster. We moved a bit. So from Ebri, we moved to Winneba. Okay. Winneba, he was at the Specialist Training College, which is now part of the University College of Education in Winneba. So I think we moved there, if I remember, either 73 or 74. We were there for a while, and then we moved to Kumasi. So from...
What was that transition like?
Oh, for me, it's okay. So I don't know whether some of my primary school, I went to University Primary School, but before then, so when we moved to Kumasi from Winneba, at that time, my father was headmaster of Kumasi High School. Kumasi High School in 77 was at Kwadaso in Kumasi. It had been a private facility and the government had taken over, but they were building a new campus. So the first I went to State Experimental School, and that's where I met one of my closest friends, Mrs. Mary Ejapon. She's the registrar of the Presbyterian University College in Abetivi. I'm not need to say 77. Okay, actually Tuesday I'll be 52 on Tuesday. Wow. So if you do the subtraction,
you don't look it, by the way.
Black don't crack, right?
Exactly.
But thank you. So that's why I met Abda. I've been State Experimental.
Wow.
And then we were in church together, Ramsia Presbyterian. Okay. But that was just one term, because I think that same year, 77, Kumasi High moved to their current premises, Ginyasi. Yeah. So we moved there, and I had to go to one primary school, primary school, for another term before finally I got into university primary.
How did you deal with all this moving around?
Well, maybe both my parents are teachers. Okay. So, and I think earlier on I had seen the movements, because it's not, you don't have a choice as a child.
But didn't it bother you, like you just got used to this school and now you have to move to another school?
Well, I didn't like where we saw primary.
Oh, why? Even well, no offense to
no, okay, so it's not about the fact that it was, because I went to Winneba Presby Primary. Okay. And I was able to Winneba Presby Primary and the Catholic Primary School, Don Bosco, Winneba. So I was in public schools. I moved from there to state experimental, which was still a public school, but a higher level, no problem academically or otherwise. So it was just the setting. So now is different from so in 77. And even though I had grown up in Ebri and Winnipeg, which was not huge town, my first entry into Kumasi was Kwada. So it was live. I like state experimental, but then you go to but at that time, my dad said it was midterm. There was a reason why we couldn't get admission into university primary. At that time, but the following term I got admission, and that's where I finished primary school and went to secondary school.
Did you like school?
I loved school.
What did you like about school?
What did I like? I don't know. I think
aside the fact that your parents are both academics and you have to
teachers are academics, if you want to put it that way. But what did I like about school? I like the learning. I like the fact that, you see, growing up is like Nana Madidebia Nani Tisha Bukum. I remember my dad, so let me say this. There are times that I am cooking and I'm just reading a book. And my brothers, especially the one who is celebrating his birthday today, KTA, used to say, "Oh dear, yeah, don't cry, be good, but to be near, yeah, do not be fear." Now, oh yeah, yeah, cry, you know, that kind of thing. But I loved reading. My mom used to have a table top shop when I remember those days. Sometimes even secondary school, go for vacation, she'll say go and sit by the shop and people, you're supposed to sell, and but I'm interested in my book. And I didn't even know. One day she came home and said, sorry, or she came from the house and said, sorry, no coffee. I think, see, someone came to tell us, oh, but now, no, dear, no, customers, nana, oh, try dear cry, and you are the best show because you are disturbing her. Originally, so that is the.
What did you like about the books that you read?
Oh, you see, I could escape anywhere into books. Books are a place you can travel to. You can travel anywhere in a book. So for me, the stories that I read, I engaged with them, and the fact that people could write the scenery in detail, I could really place myself into those places. I remember early secondary school, it was Moss and Boone and Harlequin romance. My favorite was the Dr. Nurse romance. And it's no wonder Grey's Anatomy is still my favorite show of all time, because look, we spend all our time in the hospital, so if the romance is not there, where else? You know. So I like the fact that you could escape in a book. I like the fact that I could learn about places. Before I ever visited Australia, I knew about the Australian art, but because I had read the Thornbirds years ago, and so I could identify. Before I ever visited Ireland, I had read my Binch's book, and so I knew about that. I passed through Scotland and I just saw the Highlands, and I was like, oh, this is what I've been reading about. Anytime I go to the US, I like places that I've read about, so I'll definitely visit a museum. I'll do a Broadway show, because I got to know about these things through books.
Yeah. And how did that expand your worldview?
It generally, it makes you see that there's a world outside what you see.
Yeah.
If you look out your window now, there's a limit to what you can see. But if you take a book, there's so much. It also enriches your language. When I've read a book, I hardly will watch the film, because I always find the movies disappointing.
Yeah.
So disappointing. Because it's like, there's so much detail you guys left out. And it's important. I mean, why would you take a story, a 400-page novel, and make a story in 1.5 hours? Really? So reading for me has always been a place of escape. It's also been a place of encouragement. And it doesn't matter what I'm reading, I always take things from it. I don't often like tragedies, but tragedies are a part of life. So what I like about reading tragic stories is how the hero or heroine overcame despite all those obstacles. You know, there's some books that you read and it really is like, it's so wakumamu, but sometimes I have to remind myself, yes, it's a story, but it can also happen, you know.
Wow. So in secondary school, when someone asked you, Ama, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you say, and how did you end up in medicine?
Initially, I wanted to do law, like I said, but I had a very limited view of law. That it's like, lawyers, I mean, that was not the main thing. I think I found myself doing science.
Okay.
And so naturally, medicine is an option, and as I said, psychology was also an option. The reason why I like medicine is that it gives you such a broad base. You can go into any field.
Yeah.
There's several doctors who are lawyers now, and they practice both medicine and, in fact, one of the people who taught me bioethics was a lawyer, or not, she's still alive, is a lawyer and a doctor internist in the US, and she was good because she knew both areas.
Yeah.
You know, so yes, I found myself doing medicine, and I always tell people who love science and they're not sure they want to do medicine, I said, medicine is a great foundation for you. I know it's long, but by the time you've gone through the rigors of medical school, girl, there's not anything you cannot handle in this life.
Unstoppable.
You're unstoppable.
Why mental health?
Why mental health? I said earlier that I had issues that a friend of mine took me to go and see Dr. Dziffa Akua. And after a few sessions with her, I improved significantly.
Did you know those issues were mental health related issues?
No, I just had issues that I think was affecting my relationship and others. So this was a friend, and she knew this woman. I mean, she was on campus, he was on campus too, and that is why I went there. So at the time I was going, I just did it. I didn't even know who a psychologist was at that time.
How old were you at that time?
I was in lower six, so it was 86. So that would be like 18.
18 years old.
Yes,
okay.
18 years.
And you had all these, whatever mental.
Yes, I
stress.
did. Well, in retrospect, some of it was reacting out. I've shared this story before, so I don't mind talking about it. I was abused as a child. Yes.
Physical abuse.
Sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse.
Wow. Your eyes are popping out.
No, I'm also a survivor of sexual abuse.
Okay, so, great.
I went through that when I was 16. Of all the memories you've repressed coming back. But please continue.
Okay, but mine happened in Winneba. So this was about 74, 75. It was a neighbor.
Wow.
And I think I had blocked it up until years later, but at the time I went to see Dr. Dziffa Akua, I didn't even know I had mental health issues. I just knew that a friend thought I should talk to someone, and I did. And I was like, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to give the space and time, because it was a non-judgmental space. There's nothing that I cannot talk to her about.
How was that different from the average Ghanaian adult and child conversation? Because we know that a lot of survivors end up being, you know, almost judged by the people they go to.
So my first interaction, the abuse hadn't even come up. It was on other issues, but she was also the person I turned to, and she helped me deal with the abuse. I think it was very refreshing. The reason why I never told my parents until much later was that this man, who was my parents' friend, told me that my parents will never believe me because they know he's a good man. And I believed him. I believed him until the day he died, and my mom was visiting, and I came home from work, and he says, "Oh, Nana, so and so, and then the thing that came out of my mouth was, "Thank God he was a bad man." And I went to my bedroom and just stayed there. And it took me a month, even after that, to let my mom know. And she was like, "Why didn't you tell me?"
Yeah, why didn't you?
I told you. The man told me that nobody would believe me.
Why did you believe him?
I was a child. I was 5 or 6 years. I was a child. And he was a trusted man. He had a facility in his house, so we used to go there as children. I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one. But it was about trust. What people need to know is that for a lot of people who abuse, they are not abused by strangers. It's people they trust. And so and sometimes the parents trust. That's why sometimes it's difficult for the parents to believe, even when it's not a family member. Because it may not be a family member, but it may be someone close to them.
So how do we get our children to be able to tell us when something like this happens to them?
You let your children know that whatever they tell you, you will listen to them. They have your attention. You believe them. You have their back. I remember years ago, my first son is 17 now, right? And I had picked him from school. He was in KG, so about 4 or 5 years. And then we passed by, and one little boy started crying. So I was like, Ronnie, what happened? He said, oh, mommy, I kicked him. I was like, oh, that's not nice. Let's go back. Apologize. But he could tell me that because I have run into them no matter what. Tell me. Talk to me. I'm your mother. Even if you think you've done the worst thing possible, talk to me. I'll listen to you. We'll discuss it. If there are any consequences, we'll discuss it. But we have to create a space where our children can talk to us about anything, especially when they are young, because trust me, when they become teenagers, they don't want to talk to us. Yeah. So if you haven't built that trust, you haven't encouraged them to talk to you when they are much younger, why should they come and talk to you when now their friends are there? So I know we are busy, but we need to make time and talk to our children. Let them know that whatever happens, they can talk to you about it. Talk to them about right touching, wrong touching, what constitutes abuse, the things that nobody should do to them. Nobody, and emphasis is on nobody. And the moment somebody does or even attempts to, they should talk to you about it. And parents, believe you, because as a psychologist, I've had too many adult women who are having sexual issues because when they were abused and they talked to their mothers about it, they were rather beaten. They were called bad children. And now the person is having all these things. The person you trust, someone you trust, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, sometimes even a father, or a trusted family friend, has already breached that and broken the trust. You come home, you talk to your mother, and you are told that you are bad. I mean, there was one story like that that was so pathetic. And so this woman had been married for almost 6 months. The marriage hadn't been consummated. Because when she was abused as a child, and she told the mother beat her and uchiano. I don't know how to insert her ginger in her vagina. You know, I mean, it's a form of punishment that people used to use for the life of me.
I think.
I don't know that. So it created, and there are many women out there. I remember when my story was shared, I think it was shared on 13th January last year, 2019. Yes, I shared it with Gifty. I've done a story with Gifty Auntie on the standpoint. The people who came out to me personally, these are some people I've known. Some of them were even friends, but they had no idea. I had no idea. They had no idea about mine too. And we've internalized the shame when it is not our shame. It's not ours to bear.
I think you should come back for us to talk about sexual abuse, surviving it, and how to ensure that we break the cycle so that no more girls would have to go through that, because we have two women on our set and we're both survivors. Now, back to COVID-19.
Okay.
You championing face masks. How did you end up there? How did you come up with the don't touch men?
Okay, so the don't touch men is actually not my original idea. I remember it was Mother's Day, and Mother's Day 8th March was a Sunday. Oh, all right. Then I said, you see, I should have brought my surgical mask or even.
You get a break today.
No, but I'm doing all the wrong.
Don't worry. She washed her hands. She's fine.
Actually, don't touch your face with dirty hands.
Exactly, her hands are clean.
So I remember it was Mother's Day 8th March this year, and I'm a member of Christ Temple, and we have a medical team. So one of my dearest friends and colleagues, Dr. Akusia Badu, posted this thing that said, don't touch men, and it was avoid touching your mouth, your eyes, and your nose. So I laughed and I said, hey, Akos, videos sharing this on Mother's Day. They will say we are doing a gender thing or something to that effect, and we were laughing about it. So when I was doing the press briefing on stigma, and I was bringing in the fact that, look, these are the things that we need to do, I just shared that it's trended. So but someone too said, I'm talking about stigma, and I say don't touch men. I should have made it don't touch them. And I said, look, I wanted, this was a catchy acronym.
Yeah.
And there are things, even in learning, anybody who's been a student knows that one of the ways to learn, especially when the material is dense and you just have to learn it, is to have an acronym.
Yeah.
And you remember the acronym. So yes, there are things that I remember. I was in Barcelona, we're having a meeting, and I was with a colleague who is Filipino. So we're talking about experiences in medical school and acronyms. Then I said, oh, I remember this silly acronym we used for learning the 12 cranial nerves. And she's much younger, about 10 years younger than me. She grew up in Philippines, and she started reciting the same acronym. I'm like, oh my goodness. So this thing was not limited to us in Ghana, it was worldwide.
But how important is it? I know I usually don't wear a mask because I'm talking to someone who already has a mask on, so I'm like, you're protecting yourself and protecting me. But how important is it for all of us to wear our face mask, especially
the
now?
reason why it's important is this. So we know that this virus is transmitted through aerosols, right? It's a respiratory virus, so you get it when you come into an infected person's, in touch with an infected person's cough droplets or sneezing droplets. When you wear a mask, what it does is, one, if you are coughing right now and you have a mask, it limits the products for whatever comes out there.
So if I cough right now,
yes. So it will limit you from spreading out. And if the other person has a mask, it will also protect the person from catching the infection. It depends on the type of thing you do. So for regular people, even here, what I should have had was a cloth mask. But because I work in a treatment center, most of the time I wear the mask at work, and it's either a surgical mask or N95 by virtue of what I do. Just a few days ago, a friend of mine, I'm a member of the Medical Women Association of Ghana. Shout out to you, ladies. You rock. We are championing the mask.
We have a lot of comments for you. So I'll read that briefly, and then
we'll come back and talk about the mask because it's important. Medical Women Association of Ghana is championing masking.
So you'll come back and talk about surviving sexual abuse and masks. So you'll be coming back a lot.
Hey,
we have more can implicate a lot of innocent people to be positive of this COVID-19. I think using one glove for several people a day. Okay, sorry. There's a question here. Kindly ask doctor, should a clinical psychologist always be a doctor or physician, or can you study psychology at the bachelor's degrees level and get a PhD in clinical psychology?
Oh, most psychologists are not medics.
Okay.
So the usual thing for psychology is a graduate level program. So even when you just do BSc in psychology, you can't call yourself a psychologist. So for clinical psychology, is a master's level PhD. So most clinical psychologists have various backgrounds. Psychology, BSc psychology is common, but you have people who did nursing, there are people who did law, there are people, it's widespread. So no. Medicine is not the normal route. The usual route is psychology or sociology or any of the social sciences or any profession. But at the master's and PhD, you get to do what you want to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ama Edwin. We're so proud of you. We are happy you exist. We are glad you followed your dreams, and you have, what is it, three M's?
Oh yes, my 3 M's. Okay, so
end with your 3 M's.
My 3 M's. So for me, as a person of faith, as a Christian, I remember years ago, so this is also not mine. It's attributable to one of my mates, Professor Richard Adanu, who was my mate in Sixth Form at Motor School and also medical school. So it was after class
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Okay, and he told me about the 3 M's, that for effective living as a Christian, know the first M is know who your master is. Be committed to your master. When you know your master, you know your mission. And when you know your mission in life, you definitely know who you can marry, your mate. Because if your mission is to go to Tamale, you can't marry someone whose mission is to go to Aflao. You can't work together.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us. So we hope that you know your 3M, okay? You know who your master is, your mission, and then your mate. Don't go anywhere. Breakfast Daily will be right back.